Two businesses move almost every non-cash dollar spent on Earth. One retailer has a 92.2% renewal rate. That's higher than most subscription software companies will ever see. And based on the title of this video, you might be expecting 3 stocks. Well, I must confess that might be a little misleading, but it is misleading in the best way there is, I promise. Welcome to the Quality Investor. Today, we are building a highly concentrated, ultra-low turnover foundation for a portfolio out of just 3 stocks. Well, 4, because one of these 3 is secretly 2 stocks. See, I told you it was misleading in the best way. I'll discuss what the portfolio foundation actually means, what stocks altogether missed the cut and why, and for each one that did make it, the moat and growth engine driving the business. We'll also see the price where I'd actually pull the trigger to buy these stocks. So let's get into it. But before we get into it, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, helps us grow, and you can stay on top of all the quality businesses in the market. There is certain terminology I often see on YouTube and X that I completely despise on a deep level. That term is forever stocks. 3 stocks to buy and hold forever. You hear that framing everywhere on here and other social media, but I believe it's lazy at best and dangerous at worst. You see, forever tells you to stop doing homework. It implies to you that a business has earned a permanent pass. No business can earn a permanent pass. Not these 3, not any stock. To truly become a quality investor, you must closely examine each business in your portfolio. You must constantly evaluate the circumstances of a stock against your investment thesis. The day one of these stops being the best business in its category is the day that it's gone from my portfolio. That's the standard here. Quality investing is not blind loyalty, but rather ongoing scrutiny. A foundation doesn't mean a portfolio of only 3 stocks. It should serve as an anchor to build your long-term portfolio around. This core will drive reliable annual growth while also allowing you to add stocks that might have a riskier profile. This foundation works if you're building your very first brokerage account. These are 3 names you can hold without checking the ticker every week. It also works if you're an experienced investor tired of babysitting 20 mediocre positions. This is what concentrating into your best ideas starts to look like. But either way, these stocks are an anchor for your portfolio. Each possesses a dominant moat and a clear, durable growth engine. But we must also make sure to buy at a price where the return math works. The first stock we're looking at today is really 2 stocks, and for good reason. Visa and Mastercard together form what's probably the strongest duopoly on the planet. Between them, they touch a staggering share of every non-cash transaction on Earth, and there is effectively no third competitor operating anywhere near their scale. The next stock is the massive discount retailer Costco, also known for their fierce customer loyalty. And the final foundational stock is an AI hyperscaler, but also a highly diversified enterprise. But let's quickly talk about what's not on this list. NVIDIA is not on here. Now, I do think NVIDIA is a phenomenal business, but this foundation is about businesses whose moat does not depend on winning the next technological cycle, quarter after quarter, forever. NVIDIA has to keep out innovating the entire semiconductor industry to stay on top. No single technology can stay on top decade after decade. Visa does not have to out innovate anyone to keep processing your grocery run tomorrow. Costco doesn't need to release the newest version of their membership. For an ultra low turnover foundation, I want businesses where standing still is a winning strategy. Amazon and Apple also missed the cut, but for 2 very different reasons. Amazon is a phenomenal compounder, but nearly all of its operating profit is driven by just one of its segments. North America retail runs at roughly an 8% operating margin. International retail is closer to 4%. Amazon Web Services, or AWS, is the real profit engine with close to a 39% operating margin. It's carrying the entire company on its back. Visa sits on an operating margin north of 60% with almost no capital expenditure at all because the network's already built. Amazon needs heavy reinvestment to expand their margin, which is what value creation really is, by the way. Apple is usually a mainstay on these types of lists. The ecosystem moat is very real, but Apple's growth engine right now, it leans on services upsell and share buybacks more than the kind of structural multi-decade tailwind the other three names I picked have. Remember what I said about no single technology can stay on top? Well, it doesn't seem like it could happen anytime soon, but at some point, the iPhone will be displaced by something better. All right, with that out of the way, let's look at the famed duopoly. Here is the biggest misconception about these businesses. Visa and Mastercard are not lenders. They don't take on any credit risk. The issuing bank does. Visa and Mastercard, they simply collect tolls from every driver on the road. They own the transaction network that moves authorization and settlement between merchant, bank, and cardholder. And then they collect a small fee for doing so. That's their entire business, and that's why their margins are so absurd. Visa's operating margin sits north of 60%, and Mastercard sits just a tick below 60%. The moat supporting these margins is a two-sided network effect that is almost impossible to replicate. Merchants accept Visa and Mastercard because virtually every consumer carries one. Consumers carry them because virtually every merchant accepts them. A new entrant has to win both sides simultaneously, starting from zero and going against two networks with 60 plus years of accumulated trust and infrastructure. It has been tried, but no competitor has come anywhere near their vicinity. Their growth driver is also deceptively simple. The world is still moving from cash to digital. Depending on the source, anywhere from 46 to 85% of transaction volume is still done in cash. Visa estimates there is an $11 trillion global addressable opportunity. Every percentage point of that shift is pure incremental volume for Visa and Mastercard with almost no incremental cost, all because the network already exists. There's a second growth vector that nobody really talks about. Visa just moved in August to acquire BioCatch for $2.4 billion, adding AI-driven fraud detection. The real threat to this business is not a new competitor. It's fraud and disintermediation from stablecoins and AI agents making payments directly. Both Visa and Mastercard are actively building crypto and stablecoin rails themselves rather than waiting to get run over by them. Mastercard's recent Borderless.xyz partnership is exactly the kind of defensive-offensive move you'd expect. Visa is trading right around $366 at the moment, and you can see the insane margins that Visa has for its business. But essentially, I have my projections for the bear, base, and bull cases, and then what those DCF prices come out to be based on those projections. So you can see that I have a bear discounted cash flow price at $249 up to a bull discounted cash flow price of $434.81. And I also take into account their dividend growth and an exit multiple valuation where I comp it to Mastercard and American Express in the case of Visa. So without any margin of safety, that's a buy price of $372.05 right now. I have a 10% margin of safety on Visa. So if we want to add this stock to our portfolio today, we would have to wait for it to come down a little bit. And it really depends on your risk profile. I think a 10% margin of safety for Visa is reliable, but if you're a little less risk averse, anything under $350 is probably a good time to buy. Looking at Mastercard, they have a $565 share price at the moment, and just like Visa, you can see how good these margins really are. And after taking into account my projections for the bear base and bull case, I have a discounted cash flow price for the bear on Mastercard at $516.37, up to a bull price of $860.48. Without any margin of safety, that's a buy price of $609.52 right now. With a 10% margin of safety, that's a buy price of $548. You can see that Mastercard trades slightly above that. They did have a good earnings, which bumped their price up a little bit. They had been trading in the low 500s, even below 500 just recently. But again, depending on your tolerance for risk, maybe anything under $570 could be a good buy. Costco's moat is not selling cheap stuff. Walmart, they're cheap too. Costco's actual moat is the membership model compounded by their scale-driven cost advantage. Costco boasts 82.9 million paid members with a staggering 92.2% renewal rate in the US and Canada. Once someone is paying that annual fee, they are psychologically committed to shopping there to get their money's worth. Costco then uses that captive traffic to negotiate brutal pricing from suppliers. That lets them sell merchandise at close to break even. So nearly all of their actual operating profit comes from the membership fee itself. Here's their compounding engine, and it's genuinely elegant. Executive members, the higher tier, spend 3 times more per year than base Gold Star members. Executive membership grew 9.6% year over year last quarter, more than double the growth rate of total membership. That mix shift means membership fee income is compounding faster than membership count itself. Membership fee revenue was up over 10% last quarter alone. And then there's warehouse expansion. Costco is targeting 940 total warehouses by the end of this fiscal year, up from 914. And Costco is one of the few American retailers to find success overseas. Costco still has continents left to explore. So with member count growing, spend per member growing, and store count growing, all three are compounding on top of each other at once. Costco is trading around $951 at the moment. Costco always seems prohibitively expensive. In fact, they recently had a PE above 60. It's come back down a little bit. It's at 47.9. Now, even the forward PE is also at 47.9. But in previous Costco videos, I've always said that Costco is a business that had to grow into its valuation before becoming attractive again, and it looks like it's finally done that. It has been pretty stagnant in the market over the last year or so, bouncing between the mid 900s to the mid 1000s. But the bear discounted cash flow valuation for Costco tells us it's at $527.93, up to a bull price of $853.13. But where Costco really shines is in their dividend. They pay a very, very good dividend. It's projected to be $5.88 over the next 12 months, and it only has a free cash flow payout ratio of 31%, meaning there's a lot of room to grow. The bear dividend discount price is at $1,208.70, up to a bull dividend price of $2,570.01. And that is based on pretty conservative dividend growth of 12 to 14%. The thing about Costco is they generate an obscene amount of cash, but they cannot reinvest all of that cash back into the business. They can only build so many warehouses at once. So Costco, they just return all of that cash back to the shareholders. They don't even do share buybacks. And every couple of years, you get a special lump dividend. So that really drives the valuation of Costco. You can see without any margin of safety, that's a $1,063.66 buy price. I have a 10% margin of safety on Costco, which gives us a $957.30 buy price. So they're right there per my own valuation. And depending on your risk aversion, maybe anything under $1,000 is a good price to buy Costco today. Microsoft's moat is distribution plus switching costs. Windows and Office are so embedded in enterprise workflows that ripping them out genuinely seems unfathomable. Azure also benefits from those same enterprise dynamics. Once your company's data and identity infrastructure is tied to Microsoft's ecosystem, moving to a competitor means rebuilding from scratch. And Copilot is serving as a new layer in this ecosystem, utilizing their distribution advantage. All Microsoft needs to do is upsell their current customers to Copilot, which is far easier than acquiring new customers. And I can attest to that at my own job. We just turned on Copilot for everyone. The growth driver here is Azure and AI infrastructure. Microsoft is up over 4.9% recently on continued enterprise AI spend. Every company deploying AI internally needs cloud compute and an AI platform. Microsoft is one of maybe 3 companies on earth positioned to sell both. That's also bundled with the Office suite everyone already uses. That is the basic investment thesis. They are monetizing the AI build-out from multiple angles at once instead of betting the company on a single layer of the AI ecosystem. Microsoft trades at $484 at the moment. Historically, they're quite cheap, a 27 PE ratio and a 25 forward PE, both of which are below their 5 and 10 year averages here. Right now, Microsoft is constrained on the demand side when it comes to AI compute. As they build more capacity, as they onboard more enterprise customers, that's going to only push their already great margins even higher. But looking at the DCF for Microsoft, I have a bear price at $289.16 up to a bull price of $806.47. That gives us a current buy price for Microsoft at $496.74 with a 10% margin of safety. That's a buy price of $447.07. Prior to their earnings, Microsoft was trading below 400 for quite some time. It was a great value at that time. Post earnings, they have risen a little bit. So you might have to wait a little bit for Microsoft to come back down to a reasonable buy price, but I think the future growth here is going to be phenomenal. And I'll give the same caveat that I did with the other 3 businesses. Depending on your risk aversion, anything under about $470 could be a very good price for Microsoft. So that is the foundation. Visa and Mastercard as the payments duopoly with a long runway of conversion to digital transactions. Costco as the compounding membership machine, and Microsoft as the AI infrastructure layer. Remember, none of these are forever stocks. We must always reevaluate these stocks when something alters. But if you desire a concentrated portfolio with minimal maintenance, these high conviction stocks will help you beat the market and build lasting long-term wealth. Tell me in the comments if you already own one of these, which ones you would add, and which ones you're most skeptical of. I read all of them and love the feedback. Thank you for watching today's video. And if you've made it this far, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Thank you and happy investing.